Let's talk about bows. First of all, Derek, yours should be arriving today. Possibly tomorrow, but I imagine today. And backing. I suggest backing. Why not? You can let me adjust the tilt of this camera device. There we go. Certainly rawhide. In this case, this one, the sister to your bow, the rawhide was put on with hide glue. But there is an option. I've used rattlesnake skins before. Not as much protection because they're thinner than rawhide, but check this out. At a much less extensive cost than actual real rattlesnakes, you can get this cloth backing. Three Rivers, Pine Hollow Longbows, a lot of primitive archery supply places sell it. 2-inch wide cloth, but don't run away in terror from a cloth backing, because the print of that rattlesnake, it's like a photographic type of process. They do that. When you take your Helmsman Spar urethane varnish, which I like, and you look at that cloth snakeskin at this distance, you can barely tell it apart from a real snakeskin. I mean, the stuff is awesome. It is well worth it, and you're not spending premium. Nowadays, when I was a kid, you can get a snakeskin for $5. You know, not so much anymore. It's expensive, but the cloth snakeskin backing is a good option. Now, as far as trimming it, you could either like put it on the ground in a pencil line and trim it out beforehand. You could certainly just like glue it on there and have the edges out there and trim it with a razor. Or you can do what I do in many cases, is you just glue it. Just rough trim it, glue it on there with Titebond or whatever, and then take a sanding block, a nice sanding block, and sand that edge and along there, and you can sand trim backing. I use that with snakeskin, usually, actual real snakeskin. Just run the sandpaper along there and just peel it up. The same way when I'm rawhide backing and I've got stuff on the edges, or on the ends, the tips, sanding block trim it. So it works good. So think about that, Derek, my friend, Ford man. Just the cloth snake. Do your tips, do the snake, and then wind up tillering it after you back it, so you don't need to worry about breaking it. But yeah, that's simple. A brace height, it can be very similar to this one. Now, this paddle bow, I'm going back and forth, and I'm still working on it. I don't know if you can see the little spine I'm working into the tips, and then it transitions into the round. It's not at that weight where I really need to have it backed. You know, if it's 55, 60 pounds, yeah, that's a good option, because then I can just draw it back with impunity without worrying about breaking it. But at this weight, probably this side of 50 pounds, the rawhide backing would be to give it the ultimate layer of protection, where I don't need to worry about it whatsoever, especially going from warm to frigid cold. Plus, it's a good painting surface. You know, it's not going to detract that much. It's a little heavier than just a barewood bow, but you're not really going to notice it. But the brace height, I'm a minimal. This is what I would do. This is about 4.5 inches. But that's it. Think of this. If I have it braced at John brace height, with the Talisman, Sean, you know, it's not backed. So minimal brace height, and when you get it, keep it strong for a while and then shoot it in, as they say. Not quite 5 inches, I would recommend. That's going to give you plenty of, you know, chance for that arrow to go around that handle. It's not going to whack your hand, the string, you know, boom. And not that it matters, I'm just, a lot of people will stiff arm their bow, you know, it's a very thing, and then they have the forearm guard here. If it whacks you on the arm there, just bend your elbow a little bit. Get by without the thing. But yeah, almost 5. You don't have to go 4, 4.5. You know, sometimes I go 4, but that's just me. But yeah, not quite 5. On that flat bow there, I'll probably just go 4, whatever. Again, because let's say 4 inches on that flat bow. a little less than this one. If I was to have a 4-inch brace height on that and pull it back to 26 inches, and then change that brace height to 6 inches, which I think is personally ridiculous for that type of bow, that bow would feel like, oh my gosh, you're not pulling me back to 26 inches, you're pulling me back to almost 29, because it translates. I'm not going to say that 1 inch of extra brace translates into stressing that bow is that you're pulling it back an extra inch. It's probably more, probably closer to 2 inches. You get my drift. Nothing is free. I guess air is. But you don't get something for nothing. You know, the trade-off with a bigger brace height is you're stressing the bow more. And the whole point is just, it's my buddy. I don't want to like stress it out. I don't want to break it unnecessarily, because how many times have we seen, I've seen this personally, and I'm very keen on customer service, and so even in the past when a customer said, your bow was great, and then I had a friend wanted to show how strong he was, so he yanked it back to 36 inches. In one case, the guy was amazed that the bow didn't break, but I've had some of these things that were just broken by abuse, and I know that the people abused them by not stringing them right, but you know, I went and replaced them anyway, which is a real drag. What else? I might come up with a very complex looking bow, but I like simple strings. There's something weird in my psychological mind, my philosophical mind, about having a complex bow shape, but then a dead simple string. This is just a string. And I'm not going to try to express it in a video, but I like that. I like the idea of this bow and then the elemental string, which is just a string which requires us as simple stringists to know our knots, to know ways of using that simple string. You could take that simple string and make a loop, so you can just use it like a regular loop string. But then you take this, you twist it tight, and then you hold it and you twist it, and then you throw that end through there. And then you hold it and you twist it tight, and then you move your finger. You get my drift. You're just kind of weaving it back through there, and it's enough to hold. You could serve it if you want. You could use a bowyer's knot. You could use a timber hitch. You could use a form of a clove hitch. But I like knot work. You know, I like taking that elemental simple string that could be a sinew string. It could be a rawhide string. It could be made from milkweed or nettles or anything. And then taking that simple string, you know, and turning it into a bowstring. Having, in the case of that flat bow that doesn't have pin knocks, I can just slide these things right off, so it's not an issue with this. But that has actual string grooves. See? And so in that case, you would be hard pressed to tie and untie the string off that bow. In the case of a lot of Plains horse bows that didn't have pin knocks, they had string grooves, and they were tied on and then untied. They would only have a string groove on one side, just one side. And it depends on which handed you are, right or left, in how you untie it. Because just having one will make it easier to untie that sinew bowstring. Some would take it and then just do like a figure 8 knot or just a simple knot and create a loop in that, so they could just use it like a loop string. But with a natural string, like sinew, an animal product string, it doesn't make any sense to have a loop on either end. Tie one end on, and then have a loop on the other. And you have that tied on so it's adjustable. Because with a natural string like a rawhide or a sinew, humidity and use will stretch that thing out, or if it dries out it'll get shorter, and so you have to be able to adjust it. This is actually a tillering string, that's why it's super long. Now what I like, and you might have noticed it when you were looking at that talisman, I just had this video where I wasn't yapping, and you look at both ends and there's a string hanging out. I'm not going to trim that off for neatness. I like that. I had a timber hitch on one end, and I balanced it off so it was about the same length as this tied-on end. How to string and unstring a paddle ball, one of my videos. I like that. I like that complex shape of my talisman balanced off with a simple string. Well, that's it. I've got places to go, people to meet, stuff to do. Appreciate this break in snowing. It's been snowing like 4 inches at least every single day. So I'm finally caught up on shoveling everything. I'm shoveling the world, the driveway, the sidewalks, the paths for this and that to the pole barn. The trail system, I shoveled the whole thing yesterday. And then rode my bicycle, prepping it for unicycle riding. Frost heave is not your friend when you ride a unicycle. You've got one balance point. And when you're cruising along and that wheel stops because it sinks because of frost heave, face plant city. So I have to prep it with my bicycle. Extra work. Kicking it. It's hard being me.